I think we're live. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to just leave it for 30 seconds, let people log on, then we'll get started. Let's get going. So morning, everybody. So welcome to our second breakfast briefing of 2022, and it's a wonderful opportunity to introduce two new speakers to talk about electrification of farm vehicles, and that's Professor Minnie Sadge from School of Engineering, University of Lincoln, and Stuart Bradley from Ricardo. So I have to say, I'm really looking forward to today because we're going to talk about a whole new generation of technologies. Much of it's not been invented, but which I think is going to be designed and is going to transform agriculture over the next 20, 30 years. So hopefully today, I don't think we're going to give you the solutions. I don't think you'll be able to go out and buy lots of this equipment, but there's an ongoing debate, a really active and healthy debate on the future of agriculture and vehicles and engineering systems that we use. And this is at that very point, that sort of starting point of that debate. So so that's the objective today, just to sort of talk through that. And without further ado, I'm going to now hand over to Minnie, if that's all right, to do our first talk. We've got three talks today. We've got Minnie is first, followed by Stuart, and then we've got Lisa Bagley from the Eagle Lab, who's going to come in just 5 minutes at the end just to talk to us. So Minnie is a professor of robotics in the School of Engineering, and Minnie's got amazing track record, and has worked many years trying to put robots on Mars, the planet there is, and is now spending lots of time having great fun trying to put robots in Lincolnshire, fields in Lincolnshire. So Minnie, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Good morning, all of you. It's great to be here today to give a very short overview of what we do in the field of electrification of farming vehicles. So I'm going to take you through some of the recent developments in the area of electric agricultural robots that we are doing or we are developing in University of Lincoln. Now, before I get into the actual topic, I would like to start by thanking Professor Simon Pearson and my other colleagues, Dr. Sean Scotts and Dr. Ian Gold, for introducing me to Agri Robotics. Because by qualification, I'm a space engineer, and as Simon said, I have been in the space industry for 25 years now, working on planetary surface exploration rovers and other orbital robotic applications or missions. So when I joined University of Lincoln, I found it quite amazing to see the large-scale activities in agri-robotics, particularly the scale of the projects we have in Lincoln. So during my time at University of Surrey and Surrey Space Center, I was more focused on developing smaller micro rovers. And particularly, I was interested in looking at innovative chassis design for planetary exploration. And we worked on several projects funded by the European Commission, European Space Agency, Engineering and Physical Science Research Councils, and various industries involved in space missions to develop innovative locomotion system for planetary exploration. Now, when I moved to Lincoln, interestingly, the first thing I did was, or I was asked to do, was to get a training in agricultural robotics. And I went into one-day training with some of my colleagues. And as you can see in this picture, I was a bit reluctant to get my hands dirty because the agricultural soil is much sticky, clayey, cohesive, whereas what we used to play with was the sandy, very fine soils in our beaches or in the Moroccan desert. So that was my transition from fine soils to very wet or sticky, clayey, cohesive soil. But it is really interesting to see how some of the technologies that I have developed in the past can be applied in the context of electrification of agricultural vehicles. And this is why I find this very amazing today, because I'm able to collaborate with my colleagues in LIAT, Lincoln Agri Robotics, and the Lincoln Center for Autonomous Systems in developing the next generation of agricultural robots. So I'm going to say a few more words about what we do. But I must say that there is a caveat that I'm still in the kindergarten when it comes to agri robotics. So I'll just briefly go into some of the recent activities without elaborating much. So we all know about the importance of Industry 4.0, and how our lives changed since the Industrial Revolution several centuries back. And today we are all talking about Industry 4.0 and how we can actually benefit from the advances in the sensing technology, Internet of Things, connectivity, and so forth. And this is applied to several industrial sectors. So today, Industry 4.0 is no longer a trend or a future trend, but this is actually happening. And it won't be long before we start making a transition to Industry 5.0. So let's take a look at how Industry 4.0 actually influenced and impacted the agricultural industry. So that takes me to the Agriculture 4.0. And we know that when we talk about Industry 4.0 and its application to the agricultural sector, this is all about making sure we have a very secure connectivity between machines and humans, or between machines and anyone operating in the farming environment. And for that, we need healthy or connectivity through the Internet of Things, which enables connected farms, or connecting vehicles to vehicles with farmers. Similarly, we have to take advantage of the digitalization technology, using the advantages we have in using machine learning techniques for improving the intelligence level of any farming vehicles. We also benefit from the sensing technologies in acquiring large data from which we can learn about how to optimize the performance of these vehicles and so forth. So there's a lot going on under the framework of Agri 4.0. And this is an ongoing thing, and we are all working towards implementing Agri 4.0. But that also takes me to the next burning issue, that is carbon emission. So we all know how critical it is for us to control the carbon footprints, and there are many sources of carbon emission. As you see in this chart, agriculture is only contributing roughly 10% of the total greenhouse gas emission in the UK. But this is significant. And therefore, I know that many of my colleagues in LIAT and LAW, they are working on several innovative, clever ways of undertaking farming, particularly looking at how we can reduce the greenhouse gas effects, growing crops under canopies, and so forth. As I am not, doing any research in that area, I will focus on vehicle side of things. So when we talk about farming vehicles, we know that there was a big transition from the manned operation, or even using animals in farming for plowing, etc., to the large tractors we see today. And these are all hydraulically powered. And when we still continue to use these large, heavy-duty agricultural vehicles that are diesel powered, say for example, they are actually emitting huge amount of carbon, and this is actually not good for our earth, and this doesn't help us in sustaining our agricultural operations. And therefore, we need to really look at the future of farming, and this is where the importance of electric agricultural vehicles pitch in. So when I talk about electric vehicles, there are two categories. As we all know, there are already a range of agricultural robots, which are not big tractors, but these are smaller vehicles. Whereas there is also another category of vehicles which can be completely electric, but they are not intelligent. So when you compare a traditional electric vehicle with a smaller agri robot, their intelligence level is different. Now, what we are trying to do in Lincoln is about fusing these two to create more capable, agile, reliable agri robots that can provide greater torque to undertake large scale operations in the field, and also making sure we can achieve some of these operations through fusing in intelligence into these man-made machines. And therefore, we believe that over the next few years, we will see a big transformation from the conventional hydraulic tractors or hydraulic farming vehicles, which are equipped with, like completely mechanized tools, as you can see in these illustrations, to agricultural intelligent or autonomous agricultural vehicles, which might be smaller, but we will be seeing many more distributed in the farms, and they will be, operating in a very coordinated fashion where they can talk to each other, not just between robots, but also between robots and the humans. So this is where the exciting part of agri robotics comes in, and I'm going to take you through some more interesting facts about the benefits of electrification of agricultural vehicles and what roles agri robots will play in future, and how we can actually make them more intelligent and agile. So if you look at the state of the art of electric agri robots, there are so many test platforms available, prototypes available all across the world. And we know the benefits of agri robots, and all these are battery powered. They come in different designs. The morphologies are different. It could be wheeled, it could be legged systems, or we are also even using flying robots or UAVs. And these robots, they are very good for several applications, such as crop care, where we can rely on these machines for collecting large-scale data through the embedded sensors, which helps us in identifying, say, for example, if it's a weeding application, we can detect weeds from the healthy crops. We can identify or detect pests and other health conditions of crops. So there are so many benefits of robots. I don't have to go into the details, but here in University of Lincoln, I know my colleagues are working extensively on all these areas, such as crop care, weeding applications, selective harvesting, and of course for phenotyping robots as well. So what we are interested is in having a fleet of robots, heterogeneous robots, that can collaborate with each other as well as with the human operators in the field. And we want to make them as autonomous as possible, using the trustworthiness we can get from the advancements in AI technology. So moving forward, interestingly, at University of Lincoln, I was part of a few projects where we started looking at how we can increase the torque power rating of electric agri robots. Often, that when we look at the current state of the art of agri robots, they are the motors we use on board the agri robots. These are usually rated between 400 watts to 600 watt. So this is pretty standard, and there are reasons why there is a difficulty in scaling up, or why it's not possible to gain higher torque to undertake, other bigger operations like the conventional tractors. So this is one limitation with the actuation technology, or broadly speaking, the power electronics, the drive system in these machineries. So what we did was, as part of one of the innovative funded programs, we collaborated with Performance Project, Printed Motorworks, RVAC, and Saga, and Oxdrive to develop two robotic platforms. One looking at an incremental increase from, say, 500 watts to 800 watt small scale platform, and the second one was really making a big leap into designing a 8 kilowatt EHub powered motors for agricultural vehicles. Now, the benefit with this type of EHub powered agri robots is that the motors are actually embedded within the wheel hubs itself, which means we don't encounter the problem of complex drive mechanisms, which are often the difficulties we see with other designs, existing designs. So this really brings in a lot of advantages. Say, for example, we can easily achieve all-wheel drive or the steerability alongside the increased torque requirements that are needed for executing various operations on field. So we did an exercise where we looked at what are the design requirements of such an electric Agri robot. Obviously, we are using lithium battery, but we know that with battery-powered vehicles, there are always this challenge of limited the battery lifetime. So this is something we can overcome only through further advancements in the battery technology. But we were more focused on the actuation side, the sensing side, the AI autonomy, and the communication side of things to design a vehicle with 0.8 kilowatt rated EHA, and also another one with 8 kilowatt rated motors. So I was more involved in the 8 kilowatt EHA powered Agri robot design. This is the platform V5 from RVAC. So as you can see here, we started from a very initial concept of designing a mid-range Agri robot, something that can do a significantly a better job compared to the smaller variations. And here we went through some very interesting discussions and exercise looking at what should be the spec of this vehicle to undertake, say, for example, weeding operation autonomously. So we came up with some design quantification that showed that if we want to really use, say, for example, 8 kilowatt EHUB, we can really get a torque in the range of 7 kilonewtons. So that was a big leap. Sorry, that was a big leap from what we actually get from the smaller vehicles. Similarly, another advantage of this design is that we are using, or this platform is ROS compatible, and therefore we are able to use a canvas communication for improving the navigation or the communication side of things. So which means in future, we can easily integrate higher degrees of autonomy. And thanks to my colleagues in LIAT and LAR who have put several months of effort in putting this together. I must thank Andrew Ham, Val, if she's attending this talk. Thank you so much for all the hard work you have put into designing this platform, and also thanks to our collaborator Control Tech, for supporting us with various aspects of this design. So here, the most important point is, with this transition from the smaller vehicles to a mid-range vehicle, we are able to achieve greater torque, offer, carry out more heavy-duty jobs that are otherwise impossible with smaller electric Agri robots. Here again, as I said, the only limitation we face today is the lifetime or the duration of the lithium-ion batteries. And obviously the charging cycle, the frequency with which we need to charge, this all depends on the underlying battery technology. But we are very happy that we are able to introduce an 8 kilowatt EHUB powered Agri robot. And over the next few months, we are going to take our V5 robot into the field for testing with our industry collaborators, RVAC and Oxdrive. Likewise, as you see on your right side, we have already tested the 0.8 kilowatt, the smaller robot powered by EHUB. And I believe as part of the various trials the team conducted, we were able to successfully demonstrate that using EHUB is far beneficial than using or sticking to the conventional drive system. And this offers greater agility, and we can achieve better steerability. And if you can also increase the power rating and offer greater torque, that will be a big revolution in the field of electrification of farming vehicles. So I think with that, I think I should stop because of IP restrictions. I cannot disclose much. Otherwise, Simon is going to fire me. So I think I'll wrap up now, and I'm happy to take any questions connected with this piece of work at the end. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Minnie. That's brilliant. And anybody who's got any questions, just put them in the chat, and I'll take them. But I'm going to get in there first, if that's okay. So that's really interesting. I was also really interested in what you've done with Martian robots, and what's the main lessons from your work on Martian robots that we can apply on Earth. I mean, the interesting thing, there's probably more funding for Martian robots than robots in farming.
Obviously, funding is something.
How's the propulsion system? Is that an E-hub motor? So there must have been a lot of thought around lightweighting, resilience, because if it goes wrong, you can't fix it. Even I know that.
Very true. Keeping aside the funding issues, the technology, if you look at the technology readiness level, there are various challenges, in flying these to Moon or Mars, say, for example, because the actuation and the sensing technologies that are space qualified is still very, I would say, not up to date compared to what we can actually use on Earth. So the motors that we, say, for example, we have used on our V5 robot is significantly more advanced compared to what we can fly today to Mars. So the technology readiness level and the space qualification is the biggest challenge. And obviously, the operating conditions are much more extreme. For example, the high temperature or the low temperature and various other environmental conditions, makes it more challenging to operate these remotely. And that too, if you want to do it more autonomously, it's much more challenging than autonomous agricultural robots.
Oh, right. And the power must be solar. And how many watts are the motors then? So how's the propulsion work?
It depends on the scale of the vehicles, because the one that we were developing was mostly micro rovers. So it ranges from the size wise, it ranges from usually 50 to 150 kilograms. That's a scale. And we work out, or we used motors that are currently available, of course not space qualified for our research activities, but those NASA or other agencies have flown, those are all like space qualified motors. But obviously they are much more expensive, but not as advanced in terms of the performance compared to terrestrial counterpart.
Fantastic. Yeah, at least you don't have to worry about running over badgers and rabbits and foxes.
Yeah. But we do have the problem of dust, contamination by dust, because all the solar panels can get covered and you run out of, you don't have a mechanism to recharge from the solar energy. So that's another big challenge. You get completely covered by dust.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. Fantastic. So, come on, Minnie, when are we going to go driving in V5? This is going to be a great launch. I'm really looking forward to it, and we're quite close, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Are you going to be the first driver? We're going to see you in the.
I wish I could, but probably, yeah. So that we are all looking forward to that day. But I believe we are just doing some fine tuning of all the motors and the recalibration, so that we can take it to the ground, to the field.
Yeah, that's fantastic, isn't it? We learned a lot in that program, haven't we? It's not easy. Stuart's going to tell us about that. No, that's fantastic. And what's the key learning then from Mars that you apply on Earth? Then, I mean, the physics are the same, aren't they? So what do you bring?
Yeah. So there are a number of things. There are a lot of synergies. Say, for example, how the vehicles, whether it's a wheeled system or other locomotion system, how it interacts with the ground. So independent of whether it's agricultural soil or dry Martian soil, the theory that explains the interaction of this vehicle with the ground is the same.
Yeah.
So the terra mechanics side, it's the same theory that we apply to agricultural vehicles. Similarly, when it comes to sensing, AI, like navigation, the long-range navigation, all this, the technology is more or less the same. The sensor technologies, we are using LIDARs on space missions. we are using vision. So all these are, pretty much the same, but, we adapt it to the operating environment.
Yeah. And the software and the compute must be a higher grade software, because if it goes wrong, you've got a problem, haven't you?
Yeah, I think these are the other challenges, especially with the software upgradation. And this is a challenge. So unless we have some way to communicate with the rover from the ground, sometimes it becomes tricky to make any changes to the software. But this is why it's important to make the robots autonomous so that they can self-correct. So they
Yeah.
can detect what's going wrong, and then they should be able to self-correct, rather than waiting for command to come from the ground station because of the time delay. So this explains why it's really important to get greater autonomy even for space missions.
Yeah. It's fantastic, isn't it? That if you think of although there's a huge amount of funding for these Martian programs, that actually the impact is still very much on Earth, isn't it?
And vice versa. Yeah, because there is always spin in and spin out. So whatever lessons we are learning, say for example, from designing Agri robots, this will help me and help us in developing the next generation of planetary rovers and vice versa. So there is always opportunity for spin in and spin out of technology.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to fly V5 to Mars, though.
Maybe future.
There's a 1-ton battery on that thing, and I think you can.
The battery technology or the power is the biggest constraint, I must say. Out of all the various technologies that are available today, the battery life is the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to leave it there for a minute, and then we'll come back, Minnie, for some round robin
Thank you,
questions.
Simon.
That's right. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Stuart, who's going to talk about electric vehicles off road and also things about fuel cells. So, Stuart, over to you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Simon and Minnie. That was a fabulous introduction. Thank you. A lot of touch points that I hope I can build on. Very quickly, my name's Stuart Bradley. I'm the head of power electronics, machines and drives at Ricardo. That's as much as the sales pitch that you're going to get from Ricardo today. It's not changing the slide. Beg your pardon. There we go. Right, just to set the scene a little bit. The electrical grid is decarbonising rapidly. You can see on the chart on the right-hand side that's provided by Bayes that there's a very steep downward curve for the energy grid. Transport and domestic demands are roughly flat, and business and waste are on a gentle downwards curve, and they would reach net zero in about 45 years' time. Agriculture represents about 55 million tonnes of CO2 per year. Now, what is a million tonnes of CO2? What does it look like? Well, if we were in central London and we took zone 1, it would fill central London to a depth of about 30 metres. So that gives you an idea of what a million tonnes of CO2 looks like, if you could see it, of course. In terms of decarbonisation, though, there are some really interesting challenges for all industry and transport. Domestic energy use has hardly changed, and certainly something that needs to change over the next few years. Otherwise, we won't make our legal commitment towards net zero. If we look at the energy system, well, today the grid capacity is around about 84 gigawatts, and the average grid carbon intensity is 180 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. Now, what that translates to in terms of an electric vehicle is with today's grid carbon intensity, a typical electric vehicle is emitting, although via the power station, equivalent to about 160 miles per gallon. Of course, with some vehicles being somewhat larger than others, if we look at an HDV truck, for example, it's more like 50 miles per gallon. But I'm sure you'll understand that 50 miles per gallon is so much better than the real emissions from a diesel truck, which also includes other pollutants. In terms of where the energy is coming from, we're seeing a big increase in offshore wind. We will see an increase in the use of nuclear and biomass as well, but the biggest change is going to be that the grid will have to cope with thousands of distributed power stations. Now, that could be solar panels on top of buildings, it could be local wind turbines, but it nevertheless represents a tremendous challenge and an opportunity for the grid. Having an intermittent and variable supply means that we need other balancing mechanisms at the moment, and in the future that is likely to come from a more heavily interconnected grid, both with our geographical cousins in Europe, but also from the 26 million batteries that could be connected to the grid by the early 2040s, which will also help us with a lot of that grid balancing. Battery electric vehicles will dominate for light duty, and as Minnie says, one of the biggest challenges with those things is, well, the sheer power density, the weight of the battery. In terms of being able to regulate the battery life, there's still an awful lot of research to be done there. And although battery management systems have advanced over the last 4 or 5 years, we still need to improve that enormously. Some of the things that people ask and have concerns about, it's usually summed up with those 3 bullet points at the bottom. It's too expensive to buy, and certainly if you look at the cost of today's electric vehicles that are commonly out there. So, for example, a Mini Cooper costs around about £19,000. The electric version costs £29,000. And that's just too much for many people to justify. However, on the other side, of course, is that the fuel cost is so much lower. So the total cost of ownership probably breaks even after around about 30,000 miles for a car. And for heavy-duty vehicles, because of the cost of energy being so much lower using electric, then it's more like 30,000 miles, which for an HGV is about 6 months worth of operation, and then you break even and you're making more savings after that. The other comment about batteries, that they're bad for the environment, and something that I'm always asked is, well, where are we going to get the cobalt from? Where are we going to get lithium from? And so on. And then the other thing is that a lot of people still think that they only last a few years. Research by Nissan and Volvo are heavy users of lithium-ion batteries, and they've significant amounts of experience now shows that if they are managed properly, battery life can be in the order of 10 to 15 years. Now, that's for a light-duty vehicle, and for a heavy-duty vehicle, that's going to be somewhat lower as the battery and charging systems stand at the moment. Then the last comment, of course, if you live in a 7th floor flat, then you can't run a wire out of the window and down to your car. What we expect to happen is that we'll start to see the rollout of distributed charging systems that will pick up on things like lampposts, on auxiliary power supplies that you might find in the road. And one of the challenges then is to get regulated parking. And you can see an example there in the photograph of a curbside charger, which is charging up that tiny little van. For agricultural vehicles, there are some interesting technologies that will help with this. And certainly in the terms of the field of autonomy, having automated battery charging would be a real boon. And there is some technology which is being developed right now. You may see some of it in the press, which is the adoption of wireless charging systems. And all that needs to happen there is that the vehicle needs to drive over a pad in the ground, and there's a little bit of handshaking goes on, and then the car or the heavy-duty vehicle can charge. For things like HGVs and motorway commercial vehicles, then there is some move to put dynamic charging in, either from overhead catenary lines or induction chargers set into the roadway. That overcomes some of the charging issues, but of course those things are also expensive to buy, and they're an enormous civil engineering infrastructure project. In terms of drivelines, then one of the things that we would like to do would be to improve the fuel efficiency. In other words, the amount of electricity that's used per unit of energy, and also to minimise exhaust emissions. And I'm particularly thinking there as if we do move to hydrogen fuel cells, then having clean exhaust emissions is pretty critical as well. And again, as well, of course, low cost to make, but also low cost to operate as well. As part of the focus on heavy duty vehicles, one thing that we need to make sure is that they're always available, that they are robust and repairable. So no exotic materials if possible, and certainly no dangerous materials. That they're also able to cope with overload. So you could imagine that if a truck or a vehicle of some sort has to overcome an obstruction, maybe soft ground or a small obstruction in the, not a sleeping policeman, of course, but they're you would expect that the torque produced by the motor would need to be able to cope with overloads. Now that's something that electric systems can do quite readily, but we need to be able to understand that and to be able to cope with it in terms of the full driveline effects. So let's take a look at a medium multi-purpose tractor. I'm thinking of something around about 10 tons with a drawbar pull of around about 60 kilonewton. And it might have a 6-cylinder turbocharged diesel around about 180 kilowatts and turning at 2,100 RPM. It's likely to have a quite complicated and complex transmission system. And the picture I've put on the right-hand side there shows a 24-speed or 16-speed dual clutch system. And as we've discussed before about the hydraulic systems and power takeoffs, then front and back power takeoffs are essential as well. So a lot of people have got cash and assets tied up into their equipment. Can the diesel engine be replaced, or can we retrofit an electric system in place of that diesel engine? And if so, do we see a future path to replacing the engine and transmission as a whole? And I'm hoping to be able to try to answer some of that with some of the technology that we're going to talk about. Certainly raising the requirements has been quite an interesting task. So looking at what would be a representative cost, what sort of efficiency would be appropriate, power density, and that would also include the battery system as well, and then of course robustness. Now, luckily, the Advanced Propulsion Centre have given us some interesting targets to meet. So, for example, for an automotive motor of around about 100 kilowatts, then the BOM cost would be around about €5 or $5 per kilowatt installed. They would expect the overall drive efficiency to be between 90 and 95%, and that the power density would be in the region of around about 4 kilowatts per kilogram. So pretty power dense. There's no targets for robustness, but we think that the overall transient torque should be at least 4 to 1 over the continuous rating. We've made a couple of interesting developed projects funded by Innovate UK to look at transmission, inverter and motor electric drive units, which show roadmap to meeting those APC targets for cost, for power density, and usability. And the picture on the left-hand side shows our diode project. Now, this is an integrated transmission, electric machine, and an inverter. It has an output of 200 kilowatts, so it's quite a large and powerful unit, but it only weighs 60 kilograms. Now, to compare that against a diesel engine isn't really fair, because the transmission and the engine are so much larger and heavier. But this could be applied to either two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicles. The power density of the electrical machine is around about 8 kilowatts per kilogram. Now, to put that into perspective, that's the same as an Aston Martin V12 engine. So it's extremely highly power dense. Now, the other thing about this is it's actually quite a small package, and this would easily fit between either the front wheels or the back wheels of a medium-sized tractor. The overall width is only 650 millimeters, and as I say, around about 60 kilograms of mass. It's a huge mass reduction. Now, we see that this the challenges associated with this technology are mostly to do with thermal management. So if you have highly stressed and vulnerable parts, then keeping them cool is a good way to extend their longevity, but also to increase efficiency. And what we've done in this case is to cool both the inverter, the motor controller, and the motor itself using transmission oil. And the advantage of that is that only one fluid is needed, that it's a well-known fluid, it's automatic transmission fluid, there's nothing exotic in there, and it's also highly effective. The project uses 800 volt technology, so the battery is going to be quite high voltage. The advantage of that is that charging speeds are going to be quite high. In terms of motor technology, many of the motors that we might find in the automotive industry at the moment use rare earth magnets. These are incredibly powerful magnets. They're also a significant environmental concern. They need to be dug out of the ground, usually in China. They're extremely expensive and also have a lot of price volatility. And indeed, back in 2011, when a lot of wind turbines and electric machines started to use these rare earth elements, the price fluctuated from 35 pounds per kilo up to 145 in the matter of a few months. And what that's done is shown the impact of very fragile supply chains. Ricardo have been working in conjunction with industrial partners, again another Innovate UK funded project, and this is to develop a UK-based supply chain for a non-rare earth but still highly efficient drive motor. Now, this uses aluminium within the windings rather than copper. There are no permanent magnets in there at all. It works on a different principle, and the performance targets are going to be proved in this month and next month during test. Again, it's another 800 volt machine, and the efficiency is around about 95%, which means we only lose 5% of battery energy to losses within the machine. But the greatest advantage of this is that the cost already meets the APC targets, and we think that it should be around about £3.50 per kilowatt installed, which would be significantly lower. So it's a low-cost machine, it's highly efficient, but then the third selling point is that it's incredibly robust. There's a solid rotor. There are minimized number of windings. The insulation system is extremely robust as well, and it is able to have a continuous to peak torque ratio of 1 to 6, which would easily be enough to cope with most obstacles that we might see on off-road vehicles, on construction equipment, and agri-tech. Right, I'll sum up. Electrification is something that is coming quite quickly. We think there are also commercial benefits to greater electrification. What I haven't spoken about has been alternative fuels too much. I'm assuming that battery electric vehicles are probably going to be good for machines up to around about 200 kilowatts of power, and with around about 80 kilowatt hours needed in the battery size, which would give around about 4 hours of operation of a tractor, for example. That 4 hours means that we need to be able to have a good, strong electric connection to the grid to be able to charge the vehicle batteries up in a decent time. And it may be that local strengthening will be needed, or that there might be commercial advantage in having local energy storage, which then could use locally made energy from solar or wind, but also be able to use grid power at its lowest cost. That type of storage is likely to be a battery, so something like a Tesla Powerwall, but maybe a bit cheaper than that. But also it could be that we look at local hydrogen production as well. So being able to have pre-charged gas storage and then use fuel cells on the vehicle. And to sum up, the drivelines can be efficient. They are controllable. And by going to electric drivelines, it certainly paves the way for autonomous operation. And especially if it's combined with automated charging systems, either wireless charging or robotic charging systems where they plug themselves into the mains. Probably more applicable to the smaller machines, but nevertheless the same sort of principles. We also believe that existing diesel-powered tractors can be converted to electric drive. And it's likely that the battery size needs to be at least 80 kilowatt hours, which you might typically find in some automotive applications, such as the Ford Mustang Mach-E, which is a similar type of battery size. And that's it. Thank you. Done any questions?
Brilliant. Thanks, Stuart. That's superb. Yeah. So what is the weight of an 80 kilowatt hour battery then, just to give us an idea?
80 kilowatts would be 800 to 1,000 kilograms. So they're quite big and they're quite heavy.
Yeah.
There are some technologies that are helping improve that power to weight ratio. But as you were saying earlier, they're a little way from production at the moment. Some of the things that are limiting the application of these types of batteries is the regular fast charge that we might expect to see on high utilization vehicles.
Yeah.
So things like motorway trucks, which have a utilization factor of nearly 80%. It's quite a high amount. For a medium-sized tractor, then we might expect to see a utilization factor of about 60%, and that means that you would need to have a fast charging facility as well.
Yeah. You see, the charging issue I'm less concerned about, because if you think of a lot of farms you can't generalise, but I am going to generalise, but you think of a lot of farms, they've got land, so solar, AD, a lot of big farms now will have an AD plant with a great big CHP plant. Clearly solar radiation and if planning allows, wind. So they're wonderful, wonderful places for renewable energy. So, and actually grid supply is a bit of a challenge to some of them, but actually, I could see that piece playing to as a playing to farmers' advantage. So I'm less
yeah, definitely. And I think if we are able to develop low-cost local energy storage as well, then that would also give flexibility to be able to take some power from the grid if the grid connection isn't strong enough.
Yeah,
a bit like making the most of economy 7 at night.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I could see that bit. It's the vehicles that I'm just. So can we just talk about energy density then? So I'm in my head. I've always felt a big constraint is energy density of lithium ion over diesel. How does that compare to hydrogen? And really, how far is there a theoretical limit to energy density on batteries that we've got to think about? And then we think about energy density. You're not really comparing apples with apples when you're comparing energy density of diesel, because you've got to think also about all the transmission losses and stuff like that.
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely.
How does it all add up in theory? Are we ever going to get there? Is this possible, or are we always going to be having 3-4 hour lives on machines?
Well, I think there are some new technology. So there's an Israeli startup called StoreDot, which has a 50 kilowatt hour battery that you can charge in 5 minutes. Now, they may be cheating a little bit by using some supercapacitors in there to augment the lithium ion, but nevertheless, it's good technology and it's being proven. There's good investment going into both fast charging and also energy density. There are some new battery chemistries as well, which are being worked on. So aluminium sulfur is one that's being looked at, and then different types of lithium ion as well. The theoretical limit, gosh, that's a really difficult question. I don't think I can answer. But in terms of efficiency, then an electric driveline in total is probably about 90% efficient over most of its working range. So we're looking at about 10% losses, whereas a diesel, 40 to 50% if we're really lucky, but more likely 40%. So we're losing about 60% of its total energy. So although the fuel itself is extremely power dense, we do lose a lot.
So you don't have to climb so high up the mountain, but you still.
Yeah. I think the really interesting thing for retrofit is going to be how to get the power density high enough to make most of the space available. So replacing the diesel engine with an electric motor is perfectly feasible. We have that technology today, but I think the vehicle would need quite a lot of changes to be able to make enough space to get that 80 kilowatt battery aboard, plus the auxiliary systems that we need as well, like charging and power distribution systems, the inverter as well, but also the control system. But it does offer the interesting possibility of using autonomy. I guess you could do it with diesel, but I'd feel a little less confident about using diesel on an autonomous vehicle.
Yeah, and off-road in the UK, they're mainly going for hydrogen, right? So I'm just thinking JCB. Only from what I've seen in the press, I don't know anything about.
No. You're absolutely right. There's I think what we're seeing is a split on off-road vehicles between heavy, slow-speed vehicles and medium-weight, moderate-speed vehicles, and where that where that decision point is really tricky, because you can see there are hydrogen fuel cell buses, for example, which have got high utilization. The torque density is actually really high. But we've also got full electric buses as well. And really, I think it's going to come down to economics. But the problem with hydrogen fuel cell, of course, is that it has the similar type of driveline efficiency as a diesel engine.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the laws of thermodynamics, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm picking up is that there's a battle going on, but there's no clear winner. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think the battle has been won for light duty vehicles.
yeah.
So I think battery electric is clearly cheaper and robust and reliable, as long as you can get a charge point. And then for the heavy stuff, then if we look at buses, then I think they're a great battleground, and we'll see that pan out over the next couple of years probably. If we look at shipping and aviation, then I think they're more likely to go to hydrogen or other alternative fuels such as ammonia.
Okay. And for agriculture, then we're going to be sort of catching up on everybody's coattails, I assume, and it's going to be the big automotive.
No, I think there's real opportunity there for some of the lighter vehicles to pick up on automotive technology, like these very, very power dense electric machines and inverters.
Yeah.
And then for the heavy stuff, gosh, that's really tough. I can't imagine a battery electric combine harvester.
No.
I just.
No.
I mean, the utilization in harvest time is huge, and having an extremely quick fuel fill up seems to be more advantageous to go to hydrogen in that case.
Yeah. Or maybe never. You know, it's you know, what's never. But yeah, 500 kilowatt engines, very big.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I've got a question in the chat from Val, if that's all right. So Val's asking, what do you think? When do you think solid state batteries will be available?
Oh wow!
Will have we in the sector? So
okay, yeah, solid.
That's got in Val. Good question.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's a really tough question. Solid state batteries have significant advantages. They're quite robust. They can survive lots and lots of recharges at quite high charge rates. When will they be available? I think the first automotive applications are coming out. So we should be able to learn from, as you say, catch up on those coattails as automotive rolls this sort of technology out, and we can make the most of that. What impact will they have within the sector? I think will be in terms of extending the application of battery electric drive lines into higher utilization factor vehicles. Probably not combines, but maybe to medium and larger tractors.
Yeah.
So certainly things that are maybe more than 50% utilization.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. This is one of the things that we don't know about the future as well. We mentioned medium-sized tractors, and I don't know what's going to happen, and it's going to be interesting. There is a hypothesis that there'll be swarms of smallish motors. Maybe Minnie can comment on this. And my own personal view is maybe rather than 200 kilowatts, we'll be scaling back size and we'll have larger numbers. I don't know, and that's where the autonomy won't play. But no one's got a crystal ball on this one. It's just really hard to. It's good talk, but I don't know.
I must admit, I would love to see the lightweight vehicles with levels of autonomy and an 8 kilowatt machine like you've developed with Oxdrive sounds about the right size as well for that.
Yeah. Sorry, Minnie. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment. So it'll be very challenging to design an electric or like something driven by alternate fuels that can undertake the exactly same type of heavy duty jobs. So in my view, in future we will see a lot more light to medium sized robots which can, collectively undertake jobs which are at present maybe done by large vehicle operated by humans. But there's one important thing when we talk about designing electric vehicles, particularly the small to medium scale. It's equally important to also look at how we can scale down the instruments or the agricultural tools, because if the tools are quite heavy, which are not compatible with these platforms that we are offering, then there won't be any buyers. So we shouldn't limit our discussions or research just about the vehicles. It's also about the instruments, all the the tools that are at present heavy duty, right? So a lot of investment also need to go into scaling down and improving the the capabilities of those tools, whilst minimizing the power requirements.
You're dead right, Minnie, and the physics of agriculture is something that we often forget. And ploughing, it's very heavy physics, and and maybe that's the other route. It's interesting on the diesel thing. If you lose half your diesel in the transmission, the physics of agriculture, just a complete adaptation at system level rather than individual bits of a system. And that's the bit. It's hard to imagine a system level change, isn't it? At that scale. Yeah, it's fantastic. All right, I'm going to, unless there's any more questions, Minnie, have you got any questions for Stuart?
Well, it'll be interesting to see how we can bring together all these technologies, because obviously, Stuart, you covered a lot of techniques or technologies that was not explicitly captured in my presentation, but it'll be really nice to see, how we can, bring in, fuse these ideas and upcoming technologies to really make an impact in the current farming practices.
Yes. How to engage, Stuart? It's a good question. I think this is really important.
I think there feels like there's some extra work to do where we need to look at those grey areas between different types of propulsion and different applications. And as Minnie says about the scale of things, because I think there is, I mean, personally, I would love to see lighter vehicles. And likewise, we need to figure out what are the requirements for some of those heavier applications as well, such as ploughing or combine harvesters or whatever they may be. So it feels like there's a piece of work to do with looking at the costs, the geography or soil conditions or something like that, the types of crops and so on. So the use cases. And figure out the potential routes forward to developing the technology that enables either autonomous vehicles and robots and so on, or the heavy duty type of equipment.
Sounds like a brilliant white paper or paper for a PhD student, Minnie.
It probably does.
It's the sort of thing that,
Yeah.
Because the physics are known, aren't they? It's just a matter of doing it. It's just fitting it together and getting some really definable targets so that we can hit those targets, isn't it?
Yeah, agreed.
We're not going to do everything all at once, but it's just we've got to find the low lying fruit, haven't we?
Well, I think it's a matter of being able to accelerate the technology to meet the market needs. We can't rely on just the market adapting and so on, because, as you say, we've got the physics of farming. The physics of agriculture, and they're the utmost parameter, aren't they? Cost is important, but actually, effectiveness is far more important. It's our food that we're talking about.
Fantastic! I've really enjoyed that. Thank you, Minnie and Stuart. And any questions, please go direct to Minnie and Stuart. I think we've posted email. I assume we've got contact details of you around, Stuart. So
yes, no problem.
No doubt we'll be taking this forward. It's really very, very exciting. So right, I'm going to go over to Lisa if Lisa's online, if that's okay.
Morning, Simon.
Morning, Lisa. You all right?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So I think you're going to give us an update on the Eagle Lab.
Yes, I just thought I'd take a brief 5 minutes this morning just to have a chat about the Eagle Lab that we've got at the Right Home campus. Absolutely amazing site there, and I just thought I'd give you an overview of who we are and what we do. So I am the ecosystem manager for the actual farm. We are partnered with the LIAT, so we very much provide our services to the university, to the businesses who are involved. So I'll give you a brief overview. So if you haven't heard about the Eagle Labs, we are the UK's largest network of incubators. We have about 27 sites at the moment dotted all over the UK, and there are about another 17 hopefully going to come online in the near future. So we are very tech agnostic. So if you have a tech business, we will support. But a few years ago, we went down the industry specific route on there because we pick up on sectors that we feel could really do with our support, and agri-tech is one of those. I'm really proud to say that we're partnered with the university, and some of the businesses that we've seen coming out of there, some of the contacts and the growth and the specialism is amazing. So we have a dedicated site on the farm, where we have offices and we have co-working and hot desks where you can come and work, be part of our ecosystem, have that connection with the academia there, but also have access with our banking specialists, industry specialists in our ecosystem. Now, as part of that support that we give on there, we have things like growth programs. So we've partnered up with the Capital Enterprise business who supply us with a funding readiness program, which is open for applications at the moment. And this is very much geared at those startups, those entrepreneurs who want to understand what that funding landscape looks like. So whether that be talking about crowdfunding, grant applications, or that whole how do you conduct yourself in front of a VC, we will support you with that. We also have an investor connectivity in place on there. So once you have gone through courses like that and you are ready to start looking for applications for investment, we have things like our demo directory. And this is where we found a need that there are a lot of businesses in our network who are looking for the person to get in front of to showcase their business. And this is where we started a demo directory. You can get your video together, get your information together, and we put it on, for want of a better word, a newsletter to a panel of investors that we know that are also looking for businesses to invest in. So we try and be that signposter. We also do lots of events and workshops. So Barclays Business are part of us, and they've started what they're calling a health pledge, and this is looking at key themes that supports businesses on their growth to recovery from the pandemic and everything that we've got going on. And the next event that's coming up is the impact of the Ukraine crisis on UK businesses. So get in touch if you want that link, or follow me on LinkedIn, and I've just shared it. It promises to be quite an informative session on there. We also look at doing fireside chats. So at the moment, I'm trying to pull together one with some VCs and what they're seeing, because what I'm hearing is there is a lot of investment and a lot of want and need to be invested in agri-tech out there, which is brilliant. So if we can find out from the horse's mouth what they're wanting to look into, what's making them shift to increase their investment in there, not just about the impact of food on the population at the moment, but there is a real need to see that investment on there. And then we have a website which has a lot of learning and insights on there. So that's the Eagle Lab website, and I think there is over 100 pieces of content just on the raising capital alone. And then one of the biggest things that we do as well is we supply some access to business mentoring. So that is with people like Code-Based up in Edinburgh and the Cambridge Business School, who we pay for specific time with those entrepreneurs, so that people in our network, in our incubators and our labs, can actually have that free time with an entrepreneur to talk about their journey, or if they have a problem, be that in marketing, you can actually go direct to a specialist. So it doesn't feel like a bank is telling you what to do. It's an actual person that's breathed, lived that journey, whether they've made mistakes, whether they've come out on top, have exited, or have still got these businesses running on there, you get the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with somebody that has actually done it. I'm not going to go on too much on there, but if you want to come and see us on the farm, you are more than welcome. Come and see the facilities that the university have provided. We've got sheep, we've got cattle, we've got arable land, we've got polytunnels, we've got a demonstration pack house and a supermarket aisle on there. And this is all facilities that are geared on that R&D, that development and that growth in the agriculture and the agri-tech sector. Thank you. Any questions?
That's fantastic. Lisa, it's just going really well. All I say is people listening to Call, get involved, because it's really moving at pace now. And I agree that the team is just fantastic. You've already helped 2 startup companies at Lincoln, not only just helping them, but getting the account set up and providing with space. And it's and then I'm not going to name individual names, but the quality of the companies in there is really outstanding. And all I say from a Lincoln perspective, it's been brilliant, because it's all about networks and people and knowing each other and getting involved and discussing problems together and finding opportunities together, and that's what we've been doing. So it's just been fantastic. So anybody out there, get involved. It's a great, and it's a brilliant access point into the world of agtech. Because
I have to agree. And I went down to the Department of Trade's event on Wednesday around agri-tech, and just the level of investment, the growth and the interest in this sector, it is showing just how important it is, and the research that we need in there. And I do have to caveat on this that you don't have to be a Barclays customer to be part of our network. This is our societal pledge that we know it's so important and we want to support on there. So much so that in September, because of the pandemic, it just demonstrated to us that these businesses are all over the UK, and we didn't want to penalise anyone. So we started a virtual membership. So it doesn't matter where a business is in the UK. We've got members who are as far as Belfast that are part of our network, and we've put in touch with the university because it's all about that collaboration. So I can't speak highly enough of the University of Lincoln in terms of the conversations and the support that they've put into the businesses that we've introduced.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And that you've had 2 accelerators now. First accelerator, we're already, we've the contacts through that have been enduring. There's been some real successes out of the first accelerator. Again, I'm not going to name names. And and now you're just starting the second accelerator. And again, the quality of which is focused on net zero agriculture, I think, isn't it? And
we kind of looked at both the agri-tech, and we've seen there is such a cohesion between the net zero and the sustainability, especially on the circular economy side. So yes, we opened up this accelerator that's live now for businesses that are covering both those sectors. And we just find the accelerators are so important in terms of, there are a lot of businesses out there that have some amazing ideas but just need that business support, and this is where we look to kind of fill that gap with them, talk about the marketing, the business planning, the founders agreements, etc., so that they feel supported and are ready to go. And just like you say, Simon, from the businesses that we saw last year and how much it propelled them forward on there, it was absolutely amazing. And then we've got some more pre-accelerators planned for this year as well, just to help those extra businesses on there. But we try and provide whatever we can. So if a business comes to us and asks us, do you do this? It's like, well, we may not do, but let's look at seeing how we can provide that. We're all about the adaptability.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And lots of friendly events as well. So you have a Friday pizza every 2 weeks or something like that, which I'm always there.
Yeah, definitely. And this goes towards growing our ecosystem out in terms of, it doesn't always have to be that dedicated talking about a theme. It's all about getting individuals talking to each other. And I very quickly found out that sometimes it's definitely, if you have a problem, talking to somebody else in the room may know an individual that can support on there. Or I've seen a lot of businesses support themselves and each other to grow on there, and it's where you see the magic happen. And what we tend to do now, because we have this virtual membership, is once a month we will have what we term as an Agri brunch networking, and we'll get everyone together on a call. It's an hour's chance to just get away from the office, listen to somebody talk, but then talk to each other and keep that connectivity going.
Yeah, and I think it's what we missed in coronavirus, and we've got the virtual bit going, but it's quite nice to see the human bit as well, I have to say.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a question from JB. I think that has been answered, and I think we're going to close it out there, I think. So thanks to everybody for attending. It's been an absolutely fantastic session. Once again, it really is amazing how much ground you can cover in a 1 to 2 hours, isn't it? Really talking about things that really are going to transform agriculture in a big way, whether it's ag tech, networking, electric vehicles. This is where it's where it's really at. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Really do appreciate it. I think all this is going to post on YouTube. I think most people can watch it on YouTube. Which usually gets 800 hits, something like that, which is great. But please get in touch with Stuart, Minnie, and Lisa as you wish. And I just want to thank them sincerely for their input this morning, for an absolutely fantastic and enjoyable session. So,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks for having us.
We're going to see lots more interactions with the Eagle Lab, and we're going to see electric vehicles. All right. Cheers, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.